Senator Van.
Thank you, Deputy President. Transparency, accountability and better outcomes for Australians is what Senator Duniam's private senator's bill promises to deliver. Undoubtedly, the cost of living is going through the roof, and part of that, a large part of that, is the increase in our energy prices, particularly electricity. In fact, to say that they're going through the roof is an understatement, and that is how bad things are getting, and they're only going to get worse. Despite the Albanese Labor government promising 97 times before the 22 federal election that they would reduce power bills by $275, we've seen the exact opposite. And under Anthony Albanese's leadership, power bills have gone through the roof. But this is really no surprise, is it? When their key energy policies, under a best-case scenario, will increase power bills and under a worst-case scenario will destroy Australia's energy security. Take, for example, their disastrous Rewiring the Nation plan, which seeks to run poles and wires across the country, which they are currently providing under the budget, or a non-budget measure, I should say, $20 billion in concessional loans for. And not only will it fail to help Australia reduce energy emissions, it will burden taxpayers for decades to come with significantly higher unnecessary debt. It will weaken supply and system security and will increase energy prices. And on top of that, to make things worse, to make the cost of living disaster that Australians are feeling right now worse, those energy prices will flow through on the cost of all goods that are made with that energy. And we saw yesterday with the farmers that were here in Parliament House that new transmission projects are facing increased opposition from communities in regional Victoria and other areas. For example, it's currently planned at $3.3 billion, the VNI West Interconnector project has already encountered local protests. And a KPMG report suggests that a lack of social licence could cause transmission projects to rise by as much as 40%. And here I would commend the great work of Professor Simon Bartlett and Professor Bruce Mountain, who are arguing that not only is the prices wrong, the projected project costs are wrong, but that the routes that they're taking are still not even nailed down. In recent years, major transmission projects in Australia have experienced significant cost blowouts, raising concerns about the effectiveness of large-scale transmission projects in decarbonising the energy sector. For example, as I said before, the estimated cost of VNI West, which was initially estimated $1.6 billion 4 years ago, has risen last year to this year to $3.3 billion, and the previous estimate, which was only 2 months prior to that, was $2.9 billion, an increase of 10%. It is unclear what the final cost of the project will be, especially given the potential for construction contingencies over the next decade. Unfortunately, VNI West is not alone in experiencing cost overruns. Other major transmission projects, including Energy Connect, HumeLink and Marinus Link, have seen significant increases in cost estimates since 2018. These projects have experienced cost increases of 50%, 190% and 250% respectively. Collectively, the cost of these projects, according to Professor Bartlett, has increased by 140% in just 4 years, with an average annual increase of 25%. Now, voters are waking up to the fact that a large portion of their electricity bill is made up by what is called a supply charge. Any of you listening at home, turn over your electricity bill, and on the back you'll see that line supply charge. It's currently, I know on my bill, is $1.60 a day. That is only going to go up significantly over the life of these projects. But sometimes that supply charge is overlooked by consumers, despite the fact that a significant portion of that bill goes towards funding the transmission and distribution infrastructure that transports electricity from generators to the market. Now, a quick history lesson, certainly in my great home state of Victoria. Sir John Monash built the State Electricity Commission, and when he designed that, as the great engineer he was, he realised that the fuel needed to generate electricity for the state of Victoria was coal down in the Latrobe Valley. So he decided to build the generation there and transmit it up to Melbourne, where the load was or the demand was. We don't need to do that anymore. The fuel is everywhere. Sunshine is everywhere. Rooftop solar is dominating the market and is only going to increase and then can increase a lot further. So the need to run poles and wires across our country, the business case for it is just disappearing day by day. And certainly in Victoria, to build the VNI West, purely to save the investments of foreign investors who built the rhombus of regret up in Victoria, is unconscionable. Unconscionable. And why is that? Why are people building this? Well, companies like Transgrid that are building VNI West, they get a regulated return on their assets because they're monopolies. And they're regulated by the Australian Energy Regulator, the AER. And that sets a rate of return on that asset base that lives for the life of those projects, 20, 30, 40 years. So not only is the taxpayer underwriting this, with the government planning to invest $20 billion in construction of tens of thousands of kilometres of transmission lines, the total asset base of these companies is likely to range between $100 and $200 billion extra. Now, some transmission is cheaper than others, but the generally accepted cost is $9 million per kilometre for a 550 kVA transmission line. Just imagine tens of thousands times $9 million. And that's going to be on the back of your energy bill or on your grocery bill. Now, if the government plans to go ahead with these ludicrous projects, Australians deserve at the very least transparency, accountability and basic information about what's going to be on their power bills. Accountability and transparency. And that's lacking right now in Victoria with Premier Andrews and Minister D'Ambrosio ramming through VNI West. No transparency, no accountability. And this is what Senator Dunham's sensible private senator's bill promises to deliver. More information, more regularly, will also allow governments to better respond to changes in the energy market and in the current economic environment. That is far more important than ever. A recent report in the Journal of Energy Nature showed that up to 140 million extra people could be tipped into extreme poverty worldwide by an energy crisis that has sent prices soaring. The authors of the report said higher energy costs flowed through to virtually all other goods and services people required because energy was an essential input for most economic activities, and that the indirect costs tended to be even higher in overall terms. I raise this to highlight how important energy price policy is and to show why we must have better reporting mechanisms. The core objective underpinning this bill is it would require the Productivity Commission to compile quarterly reports on retail electricity prices, as well as the sources from which electricity is being generated for each state and territory, and require the relevant minister to table these reports in Parliament. This is hardly new or controversial. The NDIS provides quarterly reports to the disability ministers with information including statistics about participants in each jurisdiction and the funding or provision of supports by the NDIA in each jurisdiction. Approved aged care providers are required to submit a quarterly financial report to the Department of Health and Aged Care to enable the department to track, monitor and benchmark the sector. It also provides information for the star rating system to help senior Australians make informed choices and helps with policy planning and development. The Clean Energy Regulator provides quarterly reports on Australia's carbon markets. So we see that in almost every space of government, agencies and departments will provide quarterly reports on a range of different areas to improve policy making, increase transparency and support Australians through greater access to information. So there is clearly a glaring gap that exists in Australia when it comes to reporting and transparency, and that void is exactly what this bill aims to fill. It makes no sense that we would require departments and agencies to compile reports in almost every aspect of Australian life, but not energy prices. While a substantially broader variety of data about energy generation, pricing and usage has been made available to Australians over the past decade or so through projects like Dr Dylan McConnell's OpenNEM, there still isn't a single source or a single report which Australians can see regularly at a glance, and this is something as simple as a full national snapshot of current and past retail electricity prices. The Australian Energy Regulator has revealed draft electricity price increases of between 20% and 22% over the coming financial year. 20% to 22%, while Victorian consumers can expect a 30% price surge. 30% in Victoria. This is all despite, as I said earlier, the Albanese Labor government's promise to reduce power bills by $275. So we know now that the Prime Minister either lied about that or made up the modelling and due to a lack of reporting data, and still isn't being held to account. But if this bill is passed, and I commend it to the Senate, it is not just the Albanese Labor government that will be held to account for the broken promises and lies to the Australian people, but all future governments as well. And I think that the senators in this chamber will agree with me that this is a positive outcome. Thank you.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you.